Alabama HB 261, Arizona SB 1026, Arkansas SB 125, Alabama SB 211, Arizona SB 1040, Arkansas HB 1615, Alabama HB 354, Arizona SB 1698, Arkansas HB 1738.
The problem with transgenderism is that its
Alaska
acceptance
HB
at any
27,
level
Arizona
necessarily
HB
entails the
2711,
complete destruction
California
of
AB
women's bathrooms,
1314,
women's sports,
Alaska
all of the
SB
specific rights
96,
and spaces
Arizona
that women
SB
currently enjoy.
1702,
There can be
Colorado
no middle
HB
way in dealing with
1092,
transgenderism.
Alaska
It is
HB
all or
105,
nothing.
Arizona
If transgenderism is true,
HB2786,
if men really
Colorado
can become
HB
women,
10098,
then it's true for
Arizona
everybody of
SB
all ages.
1028,
If transgenderism
Arkansas
is false,
HB
as it is,
1156,
if men really
Connecticut
can't become
HB
women, as they cannot,
06213,
then it's false
Arizona
for everybody
SB
too.
1030,
And if it's
Arkansas
false,
SB
then we should not indulge it,
199, Connecticut
especially
HB
since that indulgence
06331,
requires
Arizona
taking
SB
away the rights and customs
1694,
of so many people.
Arkansas SB
If it is false, then for the
271,
good of society, and
Connecticut
especially
SB
for the good of the poor
004,
people who have fallen
67,
prey to this confusion,
Arizona
transgenderism
SB
must be eradicated
1700,
from public life
Arkansas SB
entirely. The whole
294,
preposterous
Connecticut
ideology
SB
at
004,
every
68,
level.
Arizona HB 2312, Arkansas SB 43,
It's simple.
Connecticut SB 005,
It is as simple as the advice Don Corleone gave to Johnny
Arizona
Fontaine.
SB
You can act like a man.
1001,
What's the matter with you?
Arkansas HB 1468,
We talk a lot about
Florida,
rights, and rights are very important, but so are duties.
991,
And men
Florida,
have a duty to act like men. It's not complicated.
H1069, Florida
Some people.
S1 382,
Some people, maybe not
Idaho
the people in this room,
S1100,
but in the online and television audience.
Florida H1069,
They're probably clutching their pearls at
Georgia
such a clear and simple
SB
statement.
140, Idaho
I don't know why.
H0071,
Do these people forget?
Florida
Transgenderism
H1223,
did not
Georgia
exist
HB
as a political matter
653,
until about
Idaho
8 years ago,
610,
when Barack Obama
16,
and some liberals
Florida
in North
H1
Carolina introduced it through
269,
military policy
Georgia
and
SB
bathroom
141,
ordinances.
Idaho
8 years ago, the notion that a man of any age had
Florida
some sort of
H1421,
right
Georgia
to
SB
strap on
88,
stilettos and read
Idaho
a book to your
SB
kids, that would have been met with
1100,
nothing but laughter
Florida
and scorn by everybody in the country.
Georgia HB
The dissolution of April Ashley's celebrated
Illinois
marriage to a
HB
peer of the realm as a result of
1562,
that ruling
Florida
has affected all
SO952,
transsexuals.
Hawaii
April now
HB
lives in
291,
Herefordshire.
Illinois
I don't think I
SB
could have had a better life.
1659,
I think I've had a
Florida
marvelous life to come out of the back
S1320,
streets of
Hawaii
Liverpool, marry a pair
HB
of the realm,
408,
end
Indiana
up in this
HB
beautiful part of the
1407,
world,
Florida
have
S1
wonderful friends,
674, Hawaii
have
HB
quite a
509,
few
Indiana
wonderful lovers.
HB
What more can you
1569,
ask for?
Florida H125 265, Hawaii HB 891, Indiana HB
After 20
1608,
sometimes
Florida
glamorous years as a woman,
H1521, Hawaii
April now
SB
lives alone in Hay-on-Wye.
1428,
Her isolation
Indiana
broken only
SB
by visits from
0480,
people like Philip, the son of her best friend.
Florida
The locals are used to her now
H1319,
and accept her
Hawaii
for what she
SB
is, with one or two small exceptions.
One little voice says,
1429,
"Hello, Miss
Indiana
Ashley." And I
HB
said, "Oh, hello."
1118,
And the other one says, "Hello, Miss Ashley." And I
H
said, "Hello."
Indiana HB
And I was so touched, all the tears
1220,
were streaming down
Iowa
my face. And I got
HF
two steps
348,
further
Iowa
from one side
HF
to the other.
180,
She's a lesbian,
Indiana
you know. So
HB
you-
1231,
Just shows
Iowa
they didn't even
HF
know what they're talking
616,
about half the time. God knows what they
Iowa
heard.
HF 290, Indiana HB 1232, Iowa HF 620, Iowa HF 325, Indiana HB 1346, Iowa HF 622, Iowa HF
When I go
482,
into the pub,
Indiana
I'm
HB
April. I'm never given any preferential
1525,
treatment.
Iowa HF
I have to wait my
623,
turn. And in
Iowa
fact,
SF
because Hay is
110,
such a male
Indiana HB 1589,
place,
Iowa
for fishermen,
HSB
farmers,
222,
horses, horse dealers,
Iowa SF
studs.
129,
Sometimes you, in fact, have to wait.
Texas Republicans appear
Indiana
to be taking
SB
their anti-trans
0351,
tactics
Iowa
to an
SF
alarming new
159,
level. The
Iowa
Washington Post
SF
reports that in June, the
348,
office of
Indiana
Texas
SB
Attorney General Ken
0354,
Paxton
Iowa
asked the
SF
state's
482,
Department of
Iowa
Public Safety to
SF
provide a list of
335,
individuals
Indiana
who had
SB
changed their gender on their
0413,
driver's
Iowa
licenses
SF
and other
496, Iowa
department
HF
records.
8,
That's according to a copy
Indiana
of a
SB
message obtained by the Post through
0487,
a
Iowa
public records
SF
request.
83,
A DPS
Kansas
official told the
HB
Post that
2238.
ultimately no data was provided because an
Indiana
accurate count was
HB
not possible. It's not clear
1566.
why
Iowa
Paxton's
SF
office sought the information.
538.
His
Kansas
office hasn't
SB
responded to requests from the Washington Post
180.
or
Iowa
NBC.
HF2.
But the
Iowa
implications
HF
of
180.
what was attempted
Kansas
are
SB
chilling.
233.
Joining me now, Shannon Minter, legal director at the National Center for
Kansas
Lesbian Rights. Shannon, thank you very
Kansas
much for
HB
coming to the Sunday show.
2404.
So,
Kansas HB
tell us why
2100.
this request for
Kentucky
gender change
SB
data on
102.
driver's
Kansas
licenses
HB
is so alarming.
2427.
And
Kansas
is it even legal?
SB 228. Kentucky
No,
SB 145.
no, of course not. No, this is
Kansas
crossing
HB
a dangerous line. This
2436.
is really a chilling
Kansas
escalation of what
SB
is now
26.
clearly a
Kentucky
pattern
HR
by
95.
Texas state officials
Kansas
targeting
SB
and
112.
harassing transgender
Kentucky
people and their
SB
families
115.
in this state.
Kentucky SR
As
260.
you pointed out,
Kansas SB
AG
19.
Paxton has
Kentucky
offered no
HB
explanation for
470.
any possible
Louisiana
legitimate
HB 81.
purpose for
Kansas
requesting
SB
this information. When you
201.
think about
Kentucky
it, there can't
SB
possibly be
150.
one. His
Louisiana
office
HB 4
investigates and
63.
prosecutes. It
Kansas
doesn't make
SB
policy,
207.
it doesn't legislate,
Kentucky
it doesn't
HB
do public
120.
health research.
Louisiana
It's clear
HB
that there's one explanation for
466.
why he asked for this list, which he did secretly, and
Kansas
it's now thankfully been
SB
exposed.
224.
And that is
Kentucky
because
HB
he
173.
views transgender Texans as lawbreakers,
LD
as
678.
criminals, just simply for having the courage to be themselves.
Kansas SB 255. Kentucky HB 177. Maryland HB 359. Kansas SB 291. Kentucky HB 30. Massachusetts H458. Kansas HB 2138. Kentucky HB 58. Michigan HB 4195. Kansas HB 2263.
And
Kentucky
it's not like it's hard to
HB
follow the plot
585.
here about what these
Michigan
guys are doing. In each of these
HB
instances, these Nazi groups
4257.
are turning out in Ohio, and the purported
Minnesota,
motive behind the
HF
attempted arson at the Ohio church, it's all for the same reason,
HF
to harass and
Minnesota,
intimidate
HF
trans people and queer people.
1903.
This
Mississippi
thing this
HB
weekend with the guys in the red
1099.
pajama suits and
Mississippi
the swastika flag and the
SB
guy dressed up like Heat Miser.
2076. Minnesota
That was outside a
SF
drag
311.
brunch that was being
Mississippi
held at a
HB
local
1124.
Columbus, Ohio
Mississippi
business.
SB
A drag brunch that was
2760.
to benefit a
Minnesota
nonprofit
SF
called Kaleidoscope
933.
Youth Center.
Mississippi
The Nazis
HB
showed up outside that this
126.
weekend. When it was the
Mississippi
Wadsworth,
SB
Ohio Nazi show of force a few weeks ago,
2763.
that was
Minnesota
also outside a drag performance.
551. Mississippi
Also, the church arson
HB
just outside Cleveland that was
1127.
targeting a church holding
Mississippi
family-friendly
SB
drag events. See, it's all
2764.
one idea.
Minnesota
because the
SF
Nazis in America are Nazis in America these days.
3247.
They have their
Oh,
cause.
what? Minnesota
And
SF
they're doing this stuff in part for the
3272.
same reason they're doing it in
Mississippi
Florida all the time now, and in other states.
Mississippi
First, it's to try to
SB
intimidate and freak people
2765.
out,
Minnesota
but it's also to try to
HF
desensitize
3264.
us to swastikas
Minnesota
and Nazi
HB
imagery of all
1258.
kinds, and the
Mississippi
presence of
SB
Nazis on our street corners and
2770.
other public
Minnesota
protests.
SF 2
So we expect
SF
it, I guess. So we're maybe not so shocked by it as
3280.
much
Mississippi
as we might
HB 1476.
If you're
Mississippi
not down with that, though, if you are not
SB
excited by the little
2773.
Nazis blooming
Minnesota
like
HF
stinkweed everywhere these days,
1086.
it might give you some
Mississippi
pause, right? If you
HB
realize that the reason
1480.
these Nazis
Mississippi
keep turning
SB
out, the reason these Nazis are
2820.
out there in the streets and on the street corners and in these public
Minnesota
parks, the
SF
reason they keep doing this stuff
724.
is that
Mississippi
they're
HB
cheering on what
1489.
you've been doing in your day
Mississippi
job.
SB 2861.
That might give you
Minnesota
pause, right?
SF
If you
3032.
started to notice what all these Nazis were doing and realized that what they were doing
456.
was pulling for
Mississippi
your side.
SB 2864.
In Ohio,
Minnesota
for example,
HF
it might give you
3022.
pause
Mississippi
if you
HB
were an
519.
Ohio
Mississippi
Republican,
HB 1125.
and you've been
Mississippi
working on
HB
legislation to
1074.
attack queer
Mississippi
people and trans
HB
people.
576.
While at
Missouri
the same time, repeatedly,
HB 183.
these guys are the crowds who are turning out to bolster that
Missouri
message,
HB
to make sure that the
419.
harassment
Missouri
and intimidation of queer
HB
and trans
192.
people has
Missouri
not just the imprimatur of
SB
state law,
281.
but also
Missouri
a Nazi
SB
flair.
134.
Right? You
Missouri
might think that would
HB
give you
337.
pause in
Missouri
Ohio to realize who is
SB
aligning
29.
themselves with your cause.
Missouri SB 14. Missouri HB 463.
It is not giving
Missouri
Ohio Republicans
SB
pause, apparently. Just
377.
in the last few
Missouri
days, they've
SB
been happy
39.
to hold
Missouri
new hearings on their
HB
proposed legislation
494.
to make the street
Missouri
Nazis very happy by
what?
further
SB
targeting trans
390.
people in
Missouri
Ohio.
SB 49. Missouri HB
The left-wing gender insanity
490.
being pushed on our
Missouri.
children is an act of child abuse. Very simple.
Missouri,
Here's my plan to stop the chemical, physical, and emotional mutilation of our youth. On day one, I will revoke Joe Biden's cruel policies on so-called gender-affirming care. Ridiculous. A process that includes giving kids puberty blockers, mutating their physical appearance, and ultimately performing surgery on minor children. Can you believe this? I will sign a new executive order instructing every federal agency to cease all programs that promote the concept of sex and gender transition at any age. I will then ask Congress to permanently stop federal taxpayer dollars from being used to promote or pay for these procedures, and pass a law prohibiting child sexual mutilation in all 50 states. It will go very quickly. I will declare that any hospital or healthcare provider that participates in the chemical or physical mutilation of minor youth will no longer meet federal health and safety standards for Medicaid and Medicare and will be terminated from the program immediately. Furthermore, I will support the creation of a private right of action for victims to sue doctors who have unforgivably performed these procedures on minor children. The Department of Justice will investigate Big Pharma and the big hospital networks to determine whether they have deliberately covered up horrific long-term side effects of sex transitions in order to get rich at the expense of vulnerable patients, in this case, very vulnerable. We will also investigate whether Big Pharma or others have illegally marketed hormones and puberty blockers, which are in no way licensed or approved for this use. My Department of Education will inform states and school districts that if any teacher or school official suggests to a child that they could be trapped in the wrong body, they will be faced with severe consequences, including potential civil rights violations for sex discrimination and the elimination of federal funding. As part of our new credentialing body for teachers, we will promote positive education about the nuclear family, the roles of mothers and fathers, and celebrating rather than erasing the things that make men and women different and unique. I will ask Congress to pass a bill establishing that the only genders recognized by the United States government are male and female, and they are assigned at birth. The bill will also make clear that Title IX prohibits men from participating in women's sports, and we will protect the rights of parents from being forced to allow their minor child to assume a gender which is new and an identity without the parent's consent. The identity will not be new, and it will not be without parental consent. No serious country should be telling its children that they were born with the wrong gender, a concept that was never heard of in all of human history. Nobody's ever heard of this, what's happening today.
North Carolina.
It was all when the radical left invented it just a few years ago. Under my leadership, this madness will end. Thank you very much.
North Dakota, S639. North Dakota, HB 1139. North Dakota, SB 2260. North Carolina, H43. North Dakota, HB 1205. Did I press record? HB 1205. Ohio, HB 68. North Carolina, H5 74. North Dakota, HB 1249. Ohio, HB 6. North Carolina, S631. North Dakota, HB 1254. Ohio, HB 8. North Dakota, S636. North Dakota, HB 1297. Ohio, SB 83. North Dakota, North Carolina, H786. North Dakota, HB 1333. Ohio, HB 151. North Carolina, H808. North Dakota, HB 1473. Oklahoma, HB 1449. North Dakota, HB 1301. North Dakota, HB 1474. Oklahoma, HB 2186. Oklahoma, HB 2546. Oklahoma, SB 100. No, that's Oklahoma SB 1004. Oklahoma SB 788. Oklahoma SB 129. Oklahoma SB 1007. Oklahoma SB 789. Oklahoma SB 408. Oklahoma SB 1017. Oklahoma SB 866. I'm so hungry, dude. I don't even know how far we are in. Oklahoma HB 2177. Oklahoma SB 131. Oklahoma SB 878. Oklahoma SB 613. Oklahoma SB 250. Oklahoma SB 887. Oklahoma HB 1011. Oklahoma SB 251. Oklahoma SB 932. Oklahoma HB 1377. Oklahoma SB 252. Oklahoma SB 937. Oklahoma HB 1466. Oklahoma SB 30. Oklahoma SB 7. Oklahoma SB 973. Oklahoma HB 1781. Oklahoma SB 345. Oklahoma. It's blank. Okay, that one just says Oklahoma. Great. Oklahoma HB 1947. Oklahoma SB 614. Oklahoma SB 26. Oklahoma HB 2340. Oklahoma SB 786. Oregon HB 2044. Oklahoma HB 2736. Oklahoma SB 787. Oregon HB 2186. Oregon HB 2477. Pennsylvania HB 319. South Carolina H3 730. Oregon HB 3137. Rhode Island SO 391. South Carolina
Tell me when you guys are ready.
H3 827.
1, 2, 3.
Oregon SB
All right, how we doing? Are we loud enough?
452. Rhode Island SO 487. South Carolina SO
No, she hasn't even gone in far enough.
Oregon SB 453. South
We
Carolina
went through everything, and I
HB
told the kids to keep what they
3728.
thought
South
wasn't
Carolina
replaceable
SO
or that they would
243.
need in the next 2 weeks.
Oregon SB
And replace your
749.
bath
South
towels, but you
Carolina
can't replace your
H1.
kids.
No, H3
We are gonna
197.
go right
South
past
Carolina SO
Dollywood.
274.
We had
Oregon
time to go.
SB 897.
We don't.
South Carolina
We did not have a plan until
South
last
Carolina
night.
SO
There's only 3 states that are
276.
safe for
Oregon
trans kids
SB
in the
246.
United States.
South Carolina
3.
H3551.
I know people think that there are
South
more because there's
Carolina
liberal
SO
states, but we need
332.
one of the states that actually
Oregon
has
HB
policies, laws in place saying that they won't
428.
extradite
South Carolina H3551.
parents of trans
South
kids.
Carolina SO
When states
364.
like Texas
Oregon HB
come after us
3044.
even after
South
we've
Carolina
moved.
H3564.
Families with transgender
South
children
Carolina
are dealing with a
SO
lot.
424.
They face constant
Pennsylvania
attacks by
SB
right-wing
138.
misinformation,
South Carolina
an unending
H3
stream of anti-trans
565.
bills, and even
South
death
Carolina
threats.
SO
Did you get all this out here,
Pennsylvania
Caleb?
HB 216.
Thank
South
you.
Carolina H3
And now, some are having to
611.
make
South
a
Carolina
life-changing
SO
decision. Should they stay where they are, where their
Pennsylvania
work,
HB
family, school, and
2116.
life
South
is,
Carolina
and
H3
risk their child's health and
616.
safety?
South Carolina
Or
SO2.
should they flee?
No, SO 627.
We spent time with 3 families in Texas and Arizona, 2 states with some
Four
of
more
the
pages.
harshest anti-trans legislation,
South Dakota
as they weigh this heartbreaking
1116.
decision.
Tennessee.
If you
Tennessee,
disallow
HB 0030.
the use
Tennessee,
of
SB
the medical
0603.
care that is accepted by
South
every
Dakota,
major
HB
medical
1125.
association,
Tennessee,
if
HB
you disallow that
0878.
care
Tennessee,
and
SB
don't allow people to have
0620.
access to that,
South Dakota,
the only
HB
therapy left
1208.
is either
Tennessee,
A, meaningless,
SB
or B,
0001.
conversion therapy, which
Tennessee,
is torture.
SB
I also want to point out, again,
Tennessee SB 841.
gender-affirming care is not Orwellian newspeak,
Tennessee
as it says in this
SB
letter.
0841. South
It is
Dakota,
accepted
HCR
by every
6008.
major medical
Tennessee, SB
association.
003.
I will
Tennessee,
also say what I
SB
said down in committee
1237.
earlier. This
South
bill
Dakota, HB
uses, tries to
1080.
define male and
Tennessee,
female as
HB
binary. You could not
0571.
legislate
Tennessee,
binary sex
SB
any more than you could legislate that the earth
1339.
is flat.
Tennessee,
Intersex
HB
people exist,
001.
trans people exist,
Tennessee,
and this
HB
bill doesn't change that.
1339. Tennessee SB 1469 Tennessee.
Lastly, I would say that there were conversations at the end of this, at the very end of the bill, the letter that says life-altering medical procedures should wait until they are adults. What I will say is if you are, by this bill and by what these amendments do, if you are forcing a trans child to go through puberty when they are trans, that is tantamount to torture. And this body should be ashamed.
47.
And if you vote yes on this amendment and yes on this bill,
1215. Tennessee SB
ooh, I love this.
005. Nope, Texas.
Does everyone want to stand?
HB 1266.
Representative Zepser, would you like to close?
Sorry, I'm yielding to the Majority Leader.
Majority Leader Benton.
SB 0.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I speak on behalf of our caucus. We will not be shamed by anyone in this chamber. We are better than that.
596.
Representative Zephyr.
HB 1541.
And the only thing I will say is if you vote yes on this bill
1686,
and yes on these amendments, I hope the next time there's an invocation, when you bow your heads in prayer, you see the blood on your hands. Today, I rise in defense of those constituents, of my community, and of democracy itself. Last week, I spoke on the governor's amendments to Senate Bill 99, which banned gender-affirming care. This was a bill that was one of many targeting the LGBTQ community in Montana. This legislature has systematically attacked that community. We have seen bills targeting our art forms, our books, our history, and our health care.
Texas SB 393.
And I rose up
HB
in defense of my community that day, speaking to harms that these bills bring and that I have firsthand experience knowing about. I have had friends who have taken their lives because of these bills. I have fielded calls from families in Montana, including one family whose trans teenager attempted to take her life while watching a hearing on one of the anti-trans bills. And in that hearing, our caucus pleaded with the Republican chair of the Judiciary Committee to not allow certain testimony, to keep decorum. And we were told a lot of people have a lot of opinions on these things. So when I rose up and said, there is blood on your hands,
SB
I was not
1690,
being
Texas
hyperbolic.
HB 3213,
I was speaking to the
Texas
real
SB
consequences
1082, Texas
of the
HB
votes that
3902,
we as legislators
Texas
take
HB
in this body.
3502, Texas SB
And when the Speaker asks me to
Texas
apologize,
HB 3883,
what he is, on behalf of decorum, what he is really asking me to
Texas
do
SB 14,
is be silent
Texas HB 5127.
when my community is facing bills that get us killed.
When I say U.S., this is a nationwide,
to be complicit in this legislature's eradication of our community.
U.S. SB
and I refuse to do
457,
so,
Texas
and I will
HB
always refuse to do so.
4.
I would also say that if you
Texas
use
SB
decorum
15, Texas
to
HB
silence
457,
people who hold you
54,
accountable,
Texas HB 5236,
then in the name of all you are
Texas
doing
HB
is using decorum as a
2526,
tool
Texas HB
of oppression.
29,
Additionally,
4961,
when the Speaker
Texas
disallowed
HB
me to speak, what he was doing is taking
4378,
away the
Texas
voices
HB
of the 11,000 Montanans who elected me to speak on their behalf.
Texas HB 5,
And when I was continued to not be recognized,
Texas HB
what my constituents in my community did is came here
Texas SB 17,
and said, that is our voice in this body. Let her speak. Let her speak.
8,
and when the
Texas
Speaker
HB
gavelled down the people demanding that democracy work, demanding that their representative be heard, when he gavelled down, what he was doing is driving a nail in the coffin of democracy.
US HB 1064,
but you cannot
US
kill
SR
democracy that
15,
easily.
US SB
And that is why they kept chanting, let her speak. And why I raised my microphone
HB 216,
to amplify their voices.
1112.
To make sure that the people who elected me here are heard.
The world is dangerous, explained one trans gun owner. You have to be dangerous back. And that seems strange to us. Is the United States really a dangerous place for trans people? Well, West Baltimore is dangerous. You could easily get murdered there. But if you're trans in this country, obviously there are many downsides, but there do appear to be some benefits. It's a lot easier to get into Harvard, for example. It's definitely easier to get a job at Citibank or in the Biden White House. If you're transgender and can so much as fly a kite, the Pentagon will happily make you an F-35 pilot, just so Hollywood can make a movie about it.
Utah.
Identifying
HB
as trans, whatever, again, its
0132,
downsides,
Utah.
does convey
HB
status in
0329,
this country, which is
Virginia.
why so many young people
HB
now do.
1707,
Not a lot
West
of
Virginia.
19-year-olds are pretending to be
HB
car
29.
mechanics or linemen for a regional power company in eastern
23.
Ohio.
Utah.
But
SB
plenty of college
0283,
freshmen do
Virginia.
pretend to
HB
be members of the opposite sex.
32.
And why
West
wouldn't they?
Virginia, HB
The people in charge despise working-class whites,
Utah,
but they
SB
venerate the trans
0093,
community.
Virginia, SB
People are just responding to
1186,
incentives. It's
West
rational
Virginia,
in a way.
HB 2998,
But that does not
Utah,
explain the
HB
anger that we heard in that NPR
0228,
segment. Why are some
Virginia,
trans
SB
people so angry, and why do they
West
seem to be
Virginia,
mad
HB
specifically
3001,
at traditional
Utah,
Christians?
SB
We can't think of any trans person who's ever been
0016,
murdered by a
Virginia,
pastor.
SB
As far as we know, that has never
West
happened.
Virginia, HB
So it's not an actual
3097,
threat
Utah,
of violence from
SB
Christians that's inspiring some trans people to buy AR-15s. No, it's got to be more fundamental than that, and it is.
Virginia,
The trans
SB
movement is the mirror
911,
image of Christianity, and
Virginia,
therefore its natural
HB
enemy.
3176,
In Christianity,
Utah,
the price of admission is admitting that
HB
you're not God.
0550, Virginia,
Christians openly
SB
concede that they have no real
960,
power over
West Virginia,
anything, and for that matter,
HB
very little personal virtue.
3183,
They will tell you
Utah,
to your face that they are sinful, and helpless, and
HB
basically absurd.
0464,
They're not embarrassed about any of this. They brag
Virginia,
about
SB
it.
962,
That saved
West
a wretch like
Virginia,
me,
HB
goes the most famous
3503,
Christian hymn ever written
Utah,
in English.
HB 0209,
The trans movement takes the opposite
Washington,
view.
HB
Trans ideology
121.4,
claims dominion
West
over
Virginia,
nature
SB
itself.
103,
We can
Vermont,
change the
H1
identity we were born with, they will tell you with
80183,
wild-eyed
Washington.
certainty. Christians
Almost there.
can never agree with this
Hang in-
statement
hang
because
in
these
there.
are powers they believe
Washington,
God
HB
alone possesses.
1233, West Virginia,
That
SB
unwillingness to agree, that
254.
failure to acknowledge a
what?
trans
West
person's
Virginia,
dominion over
SB
nature
252.
incites and
Virginia,
enrages some
HB
in the trans community.
1387,
People who
West
believe they're
Virginia,
God
HB
can't stand to be reminded
2007,
that they're not.
West Virginia, SB
So
253,
Christianity and
Virginia,
transgender orthodoxy
HB
are wholly
1399, West
incompatible
Virginia, HB
theologies. They can
2125,
never be
West
reconciled.
Virginia,
They are on a
SB
collision course with each other.
278.
One side is likely to draw blood before the
Last
other
page,
side.
guys.
That's
West
what we
Virginia,
concluded last
SB
week. Yesterday morning, tragically, our fears were
517,
confirmed.
Alabama,
A self-identified
SB
trans person called
261, West
Audrey Hale
Virginia,
committed mass
SB
murder at a
62,
Christian school in Nashville.
SB
Hale burst into a
692,
place called the
Alabama,
Convent
HB
School
401,
and executed 3
West
9-year-olds
Virginia,
as well as 3
SB
adults.
697,
Police have released
Alabama,
body cam
HB
footage from the end of
405,
the massacre. We're showing you
Wisconsin,
just a small
SB
part of it.
4,
You can see the rest
Alaska,
online if you
HB
want.
183,
We're not going to show it
Wyoming,
because it's too
HB
awful and sad.
0,
But what was
187,
almost as sickening
Rhode
to see
Island,
in a far more subtle and insidious way
S
was the media coverage
0957,
of
Rhode
yesterday's
Island,
tragedy.
S0960,
Here's Terry Moran of ABC News, for
Rhode
example,
Island,
suggesting that Christians were murdered in
Wyoming,
Tennessee because they
HB
infringed on the rights of transgender
0187.
people.
I think I already said
Watch.
that one. Wyoming,
Audrey Hale was
HBO
identified herself as a transgender person. State of Tennessee earlier this month passed and the governor signed a bill that banned
Wyoming,
transgender
HBO.
medical care for minors,
HBO.
as well as a
234,
law that prohibited
Wyoming,
adult entertainment,
SF,
including male and female
0111.
impersonators, after a series of drag
Wyoming,
show controversies
SF.
in that state.
The state of Tennessee bans the sexual mutilation of children. Children get shot to death in a school. It's cause and effect. That's what ABC News is telling you. That's not far from justifying mass murder. But others took the next step. A group called the Trans Resistance Network said that the shooter's death was a complex tragedy that resulted from, quote, anti-trans bias. The Hershey Chocolate Company's new trans spokesman, meanwhile, someone called Faye Johnstone, posted messages after the shooting complaining about, quote, trans misogyny. In Canada, a taxpayer-funded trans rights organization put out a statement that ignored the murder of the children in Nashville entirely and instead claimed that there has been a, quote, exponential rise in anti-trans violence. That is a lie. It's a provable lie. And in fact, the opposite is true. We seem to be watching the rise of trans terrorism.